My husband told me he loved me, forgot to hang up, and 6 seconds later I heard my best friend laughing at me from the same hotel room. I was sitting in my office on the 34th floor of a glass tower in Chicago, staring at a stack of client contracts I suddenly couldn't read. The lake was gray that morning, the sky heavy, the kind-off winter light that made everything look honest and cruel. Ethan had called me at 8:12 a.m. Not texted. Called. That should have been my first warning. For months, my husband had been too busy to call, too stressed to talk, too exhausted to touch me unless there were people around to witness us looking normal. But that morning his voice came through soft and warm, the way it used to sound when we were 25 and broke, eating gas station sandwiches in his old truck while pretending we were already living the beautiful life we wanted. "Hey, babe," he said. "I just wanted to hear your voice." I closed my eyes like an idiot and let those words feed a starving part of me. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah. Just thinking about you. I know I've been distant." My throat tightened. "You have. I'll make it up to you tonight. Dinner. Just us. No phones. I miss my wife." His wife. After 9 years of marriage, after 2 years of sleeping back to back in the same bed, after one miscarriage that cracked me open and somehow made him colder instead of closer, those 2 words still had the power to make me believe. "I'd like that," I said. "I love you, Mara." "I love you too." He made a kissing sound into the phone, like a man performing tenderness. Then the line went quiet. I lowered my phone, about to end the call, but my thumb slipped. The call stayed open. That was when I heard him laugh. Not the laugh he used with him. Not the easy, boyish laugh I once loved. This one was low and mean, the sound of a man taking off a mask. "She bought it again," Ethan said. My whole body went still. A woman laughed beside him. I knew that laugh before my brain let me admit it. I knew the little breath she took before a cruel joke. I knew the lazy confidence in it, the kind that came from being welcomed into my home, my closet, my secrets, my grief. "Of course she bought it," Brooke said, "she's desperate to feel chosen." Brooke. My best friend since freshman year at Northwestern. My maid of honor. The woman who held my hair back after too much wine, who slept on my couch after my miscarriage because she said no woman should wake up alone after losing a baby. The woman who knew where I kept my spare key, my emergency cash, my grandmother's letters, and the journal I wrote in when I couldn't say the truth out loud. I didn't breathe. On the other end, I heard sheets rustle. Not office noise. Not airport noise. Not the business trip he told me he was on. Sheets. "Don't be too mean," Ethan said, but he was smiling. I could hear it. "Oh, please," Brooke said. She built an entire personality around being the wounded wife. If she ever stopped crying in that stupid journal, she might notice what's right in front of her. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles hurt. Ethan chuckled, "She won't. Mara only sees what she needs to see. What she needs is a therapist and a clue." They both laughed then. At me. At the nights I had sat on the bathroom floor because Ethan said he couldn't talk about the baby anymore. At the mornings Brooke brought coffee and told me I was still beautiful. At every dinner where they brushed knees under my table while I refilled their wine glasses like a fool. I wanted to scream. I wanted to say, "I can hear you." I wanted to tear the world open with my bare hands. But something colder than rage moved through me first. Clarity. If I spoke, they would panic. They would lie. They would call me unstable. Brooke would cry first, Ethan would turn gentle, and somehow by dinner they would make me apologize for misunderstanding. So I stayed quiet. "Do you think she suspects anything?" Brooke asked. "No," Ethan said. "She's too busy trying to save a marriage that ended a long time ago." That sentence did what the laughter calmed. It killed something. Not my love. That had been dying slowly for years. It killed my need to be chosen by him. I ended the call with my thumb shaking only once. For a long minute, I sat there in my office with the phone in my lap. On my desk was a framed photo from our wedding, me in satin, Ethan in a black tux, Brooke behind us with one hand on each of our shoulders like she was blessing us. I turned the frame face down. Then I took off my wedding ring. I didn't throw it. I didn't cry over it. I set it next to my phone, diamond catching the cold morning light, and stared at both objects like they had just testified against the same man. That night Ethan came home with white roses and Thai food from my favorite place in Lincoln Park. He walked in wearing the navy coat I had bought him for Christmas, smelling faintly of cedar, soap, and a perfume I had once complimented on Brooke. "Hey," he said, lifting the takeout bag. "Peace offering." I looked at him. His hair was damp from a shower he had not taken in our home. There was a tiny red mark near his collarbone, half hidden by his shirt. He stepped toward me like nothing in the universe had changed. I let him kiss my forehead. His lips felt like evidence. "You okay?" he asked. "Long day." "Same." He sighed dramatically, loosening his tie. "The Denver meetings were brutal." "Denver. So that was the lie today." I smiled. I thought you said the client was in St. Louis. For half a second, his face stopped being handsome. Then he recovered. Right. St. Louis. Sorry. My head's fried. Must be. We ate at the kitchen island. He talked about airport delays, a difficult senior partner, numbers that didn't close. I nodded. I asked questions. I watched him lie with the smoothness of a man who had practiced on someone forgiving. Halfway through dinner, he mentioned Brooke. She texted me earlier, he said, she's worried about you. My chopsticks paused. Is she? Yeah. She said you've seemed fragile lately. Maybe the anniversary is hitting you harder than you admit. The anniversary. The date I lost the baby. The date Brooke and Ethan apparently felt comfortable using as a shield for their affair. That's thoughtful of her, I said. She loves you, Mara. I almost laughed. Instead, I looked at my husband and saw him clearly for the first time in years. Not as the boy who used to kiss my hand at red lights. Not as the man I had defended to my mother, my friends, my own reflection. I saw an actor. A lazy one. For the next 11 days, I became quiet. Not broken quiet, watching quiet. Ethan flipped his phone face down whenever he sat near me. Hester did taking client calls in the garage. He smiled at messages and erased the smile when he noticed me looking. Brooke sent me memes about anxious wives, then followed them with little hearts. She invited him to brunch, Pilates, a healing sound bath. I knew she would mock me for attending. I saved everything. Account. Strange gas station charges in neighborhoods Ethan claimed he never visited. A florist bill for pink peonies, which I hated and Brooke loved. I opened my old journal again, the one Brooke had called stupid when she thought I couldn't hear, but I didn't write like a wounded wife anymore. I wrote like a witness. At the top off a clean page, I wrote, things they don't know I know. Underneath, I listed the call. The perfume. The hotel charge hidden under business meals. The way Brooke had started wearing Ethan's favorite Cubs sweatshirt to my house and pretending she bought it vintage. The way Ethan always poured her wine before mine. The way they looked away too quickly when I entered a room. The way my grief had made the perfect curtain. That Friday, we hosted dinner for our usual group. I almost cancelled, but then I realized I needed to see them perform together. Brooke arrived in a cream silk blouse and red lipstick, carrying a bottle of champagne she said was for Mara, because she deserves sparkle. She hugged me too hard. My girl, she whispered into my hair. I held her just as tightly. My girl, I whispered back. Her body stiffened. During dinner, Ethan sat at the head of the table. I sat at the opposite end. Brooke placed herself between him and a banker named Nolan, close enough that her knee kept disappearing under the table. Everyone was laughing about some ridiculous vacation disaster when Ethan reached for the bread basket and Brooke reached at the same time. Their fingers touched. It lasted less than 1 second. No one else noticed. I did. Her brain. The table laughed. I lifted my wine. Some connections are hard to hide, I said. The laughter thinned. Ethan looked at me. Brooke looked at him. I smiled like a woman who still might know nothing. But they both understood something small and dangerous. I was not asleep anymore. After the dinner guests left, Ethan followed me into the kitchen. You were weird tonight, he said. And about connections. It was a joke. It didn't feel like one. I turned off the faucet and faced him. Maybe you're sensitive. His jaw tightened. He hated when I sounded calm. Anger he could use. Tears he could manage. Calm gave him nothing to hold. I'm worried about you, he said. There it was. The soft opening to the trap. You keep saying that. Because I am. You've been distant, suspicious, not yourself. Maybe I'm becoming myself. He stared at me as if I had spoken a language he didn't like. Upstairs, I heard his phone vibrate on the nightstand. Once. Twice. He didn't move. I smiled. Someone needs you. He didn't answer. That night, I slept in the guest room. I told him my back hurt. He didn't fight me. By morning, there was a new softness in his voice, too polished to be real. Mara, he said from the doorway, we should talk. I closed my laptop. About what? Us. I waited. He sat at the edge of the bed, looking like a man preparing a speech. I think you're struggling more than you admit. Since the miscarriage, you've been different. My skin went cold. I lost a child, Ethan. I know. No. You don't. His eyes hardened for a flash. I lost one too. You stopped saying that after 3 weeks. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is using our dead baby as a reason to call me unstable. He stood. I didn't say unstable. You were about to. He looked away. And there it was, the plan beneath the affair. They weren't just betraying me. They were preparing a story about me. Fragile Mara. Paranoid Mara. Still grieving Mara. The kind of woman whose husband deserved sympathy for leaving. I went to work that morning and called my cousin Lila from the parking garage. Lila was a criminal defense attorney, 2 years older than me, and the only woman in my family who could make a Starbucks barista confess to tax fraud just by raising an eyebrow. I need to tell you something, I said. How bad? My husband is sleeping with Brooke. Silence. Then, in the flattest voice I had ever heard from her, Lila said, I'm coming over tonight. She arrived with soup, red wine, and the expression of a woman mentally assembling a jury. I told her everything. The open call. The laughter. My grief. Brooke's messages. The receipts. Lila didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she set her wine glass down. Mara, I need you to listen carefully. Do not confront them yet. I know. No, I mean legally. If he's already building a narrative that you're emotionally unstable, then he is not only cheating. He is positioning himself. For divorce? For the house. Maybe whatever else say he thinks he can take. My stomach dropped. The house. My grandmother's house. Technically, it had been left to me before the marriage, but Ethan had spent years pushing me to refinance it, remodel it, make it ours. I had paid for most of it. He had bragged about it like a co-owner at parties. I need a lawyer, I said. You need too. Divorce and financial. And you need to stop funding whatever fantasy apartment they're playing house in. Apartment? Lila tilted her head. Men like Ethan don't sneak around in random hotels forever. They get comfortable people leave paper. She was right. The proof came 3 mornings later. Ethan told me he had to fly to Boston for a partnership meeting. He packed carefully, expensive shirts, the watch I bought him for our anniversary, and the cologne he only wore when he wanted someone to remember him. I kissed his cheek at door. Safe flight. I'll call when I land. You always do. He didn't notice the edge. He didn't go to Boston. At 11:46 that night, Brooke posted an Instagram story to her private close friends list, probably drunk enough to forget I was on it. It showed a tiny living room with exposed brick, a bottle of Cabernet on a marble coffee table, and rain streaking down a window. In the glass reflection, barely visible for 2 seconds, was Ethan. Shirt unbuttoned. Holding 2 wine glasses. I screen recorded it before she deleted it 4 minutes later. The next morning, Ethan texted, just landed. Long day already. Miss you. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I went to his side of the closet. I wasn't looking to betray his privacy. I was looking to stop betraying my sanity. I in the back of a shoebox beneath old tax files, I found a folded lease. A condo in River North. Leaseholders, Ethan Hale and Brooke Callahan. Start date, 7 months earlier. 7 months, while I was trying to understand why my husband no longer touched me, he was choosing throw pillows with my best friend 14 blocks from my office. I photographed every page. I put the lease back exactly where it had been. Then I sat on the closet floor and laughed once. It came out ugly and broken. Not because it was funny. Because there was finally no room left for doubt. They had not made a mistake, they had made a life. And I had been paying for part of it. By noon, Lila had connected me with a divorce attorney named Gwen Barrow, a woman with silver hair, sharp glasses, and the energy of a loaded weapon in a silk blouse. Gwen reviewed the lease, the receipts, the call notes, and the screenshots. Then she looked at me over the frames of her glasses. Your husband is not as smart as he thinks he is. Those were the first comforting words I had heard in weeks. Over the next 8 days, I moved quietly. I opened new accounts. I changed passwords. I froze the joint card I used to deposit most of my consulting income. I copied mortgage records, tax returns, insurance files, retirement accounts, client invoices, and every email where Ethan mentioned our house as if repetition could rewrite ownership. I also found the second twist. It came through our home security system. Ethan had insisted we install cameras after a string of neighborhood break-ins. He forgot that the cloud storage account was under my email. One night, while searching for footage of him leaving with a suitcase, I found a clip from 3 months earlier, Brooke entering my house at 2:17 p.m. alone. She used the spare key. She walked straight to my office. She opened the bottom drawer of my desk. She took out my journal. For 12 minutes she stood there photographing pages with her phone. My mouth went dry. Those private pages were where I had written about panic attacks, nightmares, guilt over the miscarriage, fear that I was unlovable, fear that Ethan would leave. Brooke had not guessed my wounds. She had studied them. And then she had handed them to him. I sent the clip to Gwen and Lila. Lila called immediately. Do not go near her, she said. Mara, promise me. I promise. My voice sounded strange. Calm again. Too calm. Because now I knew something even worse than betrayal. They had been preparing to use my own grief against me. The opportunity to make them show their hands came sooner than expected. Brooke's engagement party was scheduled for the following Saturday. Yes, Brooke was engaged. To a kind, quiet pediatric surgeon named Daniel Price, who had loved her for 4 years and never seemed to notice she treated loyalty like a costume. The party was at a private room above a restaurant in Gold Coast. I had planned half of it before my world caught fire because Brooke had asked me to help. She said I had better taste than her planner. She said I was the sister she chose. I almost didn't go. Then Gwen said something that changed my mind. If she is still engaged, and if your husband is still hiding assets or spending marital funds on their apartment, Daniel may need to know. But don't create a scene you can't control. Create a record. So I went. I wore a black dress, simple pearl earrings, and no wedding ring. Brooke saw my bare hand the moment I walked in. Her smile faltered. Mara, she said, rushing toward me. You came. Of course. She hugged me. Her perfume filled my nose. The same perfume I had smelled on my husband. You look thin, she whispered. Are you eating? I stepped back. Are you sleeping? Color drained from her face. Before she could answer, Daniel appeared beside her, warm and clueless. Mara, I'm so glad you're here, he said. Brooke was worried you might skip. I wouldn't miss this. Across the room, Ethan stood near the bar. He was not supposed to be there. Brooke had told me weeks earlier she wasn't inviting him because it might be awkward with Daniel's friends. But there he was, whiskey in hand, eyes locked on mine. I walked toward him. He leaned close before I could speak. We need to talk privately. No, his expression flickered. Mara, don't do this here. Do what? You know what? I smiled. Do I? His voice lowered. You've been digging through my things. And you've been digging through my life. His eyes went flat. For the first time, the sweet husband was gone completely. You're not thinking clearly, he said. There it was again. The narrative. I let my eyes fill with tears. Not fake ones. Real ones I had been saving by accident. You're right, I said softly. Maybe I'm not. His face changed. He thought he had found the door. That's all I'm saying, he murmured. You've been through so much. I have. And if you make accusations while you're in this state, people might misunderstand. I looked over his shoulder. Brooke was watching us. Daniel was watching Brooke. Perfect. I reached into my clutch and pulled out an envelope. It brought something for the bride. Ethan's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Too hard. I didn't pull away. I only looked down at his fingers. Let go of me. He released me instantly, but Daniel had already seen it. So had 6 other people. I walked to the gift table, placed the envelope on top of the silver-wrapped presents, and wrote Daniel's name across the front. Brooke moved toward me like she could stop gravity. Mara, she hissed. I leaned close enough that only she could hear. You were right about one thing. I was desperate. Not for love. For the truth. Her lips trembled. And now I have it. I walked out before the envelope was opened. That was not revenge. That was the warning shot. The real explosion happened 2 days later. Daniel called me from an unknown number. His voice sounded like someone had removed the floor from under him. Is it true? He asked. I'm sorry. The lease, the video? Your journal? I closed my eyes. Yes. He was quiet for so long it thought the line had dropped. She said you're unstable, he finally said. She said you've been obsessed with ruining her because Ethan wants to leave you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course she did. She also said you forged the lease. I can send you the landlord's contact information. I already called him. My breath caught. He confirmed it, Daniel said. Both names. Same unit. 7 months. I sat down slowly. I'm sorry, I whispered again. No, he said. I'm sorry. She cried to me about your miscarriage. She made me feel guilty for questioning why she was always at your house. Then his voice broke. She was using your pain as cover. After that call, the world moved fast. Daniel called off the wedding. Brooke's mother called me a jealous liar until Daniel sent her the lease. Ethan's mother, Patricia, showed up at my front door in a camel coat, holding the printed screenshots with shaking hands. Patricia had never been warm exactly, but she had always been fair. She was the kind of woman who believed thank you notes should be handwritten and betrayal should be faced standing up. When I opened the door, she looked at my bare hand. Oh, Mara, she said. And then, to my shock, she cried. I let her in. She sat at me kitchen table, the same table where Ethan had lied over noodles and roses, and covered her face. I raised him better than this. I didn't know what to say. She looked up. He told us you had become paranoid. That grief changed you. He said he stayed because it didn't want to abandon a broken woman. The words entered me like ice water. A broken woman. That was the story he had been selling. Not just to himself. To his family. To the world. Patricia reached across the table and took my hand. I believed parts of it, she admitted. And I am ashamed. That honesty hurt more than denial would have. There's something else, she said. She opened her purse and removed a folded document. Ethan asked his father last month about moving money. He said you were reckless with finances. He said he needed to protect assets before you had a breakdown. Myers rang. What assets? Patricia looked sick. The Lake House Fund. Your consulting distributions. He said some accounts were joint by mistake. I pushed back from the table. My grandmother's money. My work. My name. He wasn't just trying to leave me. He was trying to rob me on the way out and make everyone think I was too unstable Tonitus. That night, Ethan came to Lila's condo because he knew I was staying there. Lila opened the door but kept the chain on. You have 5 seconds, she said, I need to talk to my wife. I stepped into view behind her. Your wife heard you laughing at her. He looked terrible. Unshaven, pale, eyes red. For 1 second, the old part of me wanted to comfort him. Habit is a cruel ghost. Mara, he said. I made mistakes. No. You made arrangements. He flinched. I ended it with Brooke. I smiled. Did Daniel ending it first help? His face twisted. She means nothing. That's worse. He was confused. Your confusion signed a lease, bought wine, photographed my journal, and asked your parents if you could hide money from me. That last part hit him. His eyes moved too quickly. There it was. Proof without paper. You spoke to my mother. She spoke to me. You're turning my family against me. You did that when you gave them a lie and called it concern. He stepped closer to the door. Lila's hand moved to her phone. Mara, please, he said, voice cracking. I still love you. I looked at the man I had once planned birthdays for, prayed over, forgiven before he asked. No, I said. You love being forgiven. He started crying then. Maybe the tears were real. Maybe losing control felt the same as regret to him. I didn't know how to come back after the baby, he whispered. For the first time, anger split open into something sadder. Neither did I said. But I didn't climb into your best friend's bed and laugh at your grief. He lowered his head. I'll do anything. Good. Start by leaving. He looked at my hand, saw no ring, and finally understood that the door was not just closed. It had been locked from the inside. I filed for divorce the next morning. Gwen moved like she had been waiting her entire career for a man like Ethan to underestimate a quiet wife. She traced every payment from our joint account to the River North condo. She subpoenaed lease records. She documented the journal footage. She pulled texts Ethan thought were deleted from an old iPad still connected to his account. That was how we found the third twist. Brooke had not only photographed my journal. She had sent Ethan of a page where I had written, I worry people only stay because they pity me. Brooke's reply to Ethan read, use this if she gets difficult. She already thinks unstable. Another message, dated 2 weeks before the engagement party, said, after Daniel and I are married, we can slow everything down. She'll look crazy if she comes after both couples. Both couples. My best friend had planned to marry one man while keeping my husband, and somehow she thought I was the pathetic one. The final message was from Ethan. Once Mara signs the refinance, I can move enough out that she won't fight. I stared at that line until the screen blurred. The refinance papers. He had been pushing them for months. He said the rates were good. He said we should renovate the kitchen. He said it made sense to simplify ownership. He wanted my grandmother's house. The house with the pencil marks on the pantry wall from when me cousins and I measured our heights. The house where my mother taught me how to make peach cobbler. The house where I recovered after losing the baby because it was the only place in the world that still felt like it knew me. Gwen read the message and smiled for the first time, not a happy smile. A predator smile. Well, she said. That was generous of him. The court proceedings were not quick, but the first hearing was satisfying in a way I am not ashamed to admit. Ethan arrived in a charcoal suit with his attorney, trying to look solemn and wounded. Brooke did not come, but her name hung over the room like smoke. His attorney opened by implying I was emotionally volatile, that I had invaded my husband's privacy, that I had misinterpreted friendships because of unresolved trauma. Gwen let him speak. She let him build the whole ugly little house. Then she burned it down. She submitted the lease. The payments. The security footage of Brooke entering my house and photographing me journal. The open call notes. The messages where Brooke coached Ethan to use my grief against me. The text about the refinance. And then, because Gwen believed in theater when theater served justice, she played a clip from our doorbell camera, Ethan gripping my wrist at Brooke's engagement party while telling me not to dot his hair. The room went silent. Ethan's attorney stopped looking at me like a fragile woman and started looking at his own client like a problem. When the judge ordered temporary financial restraints and exclusive use of the house to me, Ethan's face turned gray. But the biggest part came outside the courtroom. Patricia was waiting in the hallway. Ethan walked toward her like a child seeking shelter. She stepped back. Mom, he said. She looked at him with a grief I understood too well. You didn't just cheat on your wife, she said. You tried to bury her with her own pain. Mom, please, no, her voice shook, but it did not break. Your father and I will not help you take $1 from that woman. He looked stunned. That was the thing about men like Ethan. They believed women's love was endless, especially a mother's, especially a wife's. They never imagined love could remain real and still refuse to protect them from consequences. Brooke tried to see me once. It happened 3 months later, after quietly collapsed, after Ethan stopped paying half the River North rent because Gwen had frozen him like a bug under glass. I had just finished speaking at a women's networking brunch. The topic was rebuilding after betrayal, though I never used Ethan's name. I didn't need to. Women know the shape of certain stories even when details change. Brooke waited near the elevators. She looked smaller than I remembered. No red lipstick. No silk blouse. Just swollen eyes and a beige coat buttoned wrong. Mara, she said. My body reacted before my heart did. Shoulders tight. Breath short. Every nerve remembering the sound of her laughing. I kept walking. Please, she said. I need closure. That made me stop. I turned around. You need closure? She swallowed. I know I hurt you. No, Brooke. You studied me, used me, stole from me, and then called it hurting me because that sounds softer. Tears filled her eyes. I was lonely. I stared at her. Lonely people get dogs. They don't get apartments with their best friend's husband. Her mouth trembled. I loved him. Then you should have told me. I was afraid of losing you. That time I did laugh. It startled both of us. You were afraid of losing the woman whose house key you used to photograph her grief? She looked down. I didn't think it would go this far. That's another lie. You planned for it to go farther. You wanted me doubting myself while you married Daniel and kept Ethan on the side. Her eyes snapped up. So she knew I had the texts. Good. I need you to forgive me, she whispered. I can heal if you hate me. The old Mara might have softened. The old Mara carried other people's pain like it was a moral duty. But I was not the old Mara anymore. Your healing can't depend on the woman you betrayed. We were sisters. No, I said quietly. Sisters don't memorize your wounds so they can aim better. She covered her mouth. For a second, I saw the girl she used to be at 19, sitting cross-legged on my dorm floor, painting her nails with my polish, telling me no man would ever come between us. Maybe that girl had been real. Maybe she had always been practicing. It no longer mattered. Will you ever forgive me? She asked. I looked at her for a long moment. Maybe one day I'll stop bleeding when I remember you. But that doesn't mean you get a place in my life again. Then I walked into the elevator and let the doors close on her face. The divorce finalized 9 months after the call that started everything. I kept my retirement. Ethan kept his suits, his debt, and the condo lease that had become the most expensive mistake of his life. Brooke lost Daniel, the wedding venue deposit, most of her friends, and eventually the apartment too. I heard she moved to Arizona for a fresh start, which sounded exactly like Brooke. New state, same mirror. Ethan tried one last time after the final hearing. He waited outside the courthouse in the rain, holding my wedding ring in his palm. I don't know when he had taken it from the bedroom. Maybe the day I left. Maybe he carried it like a prop. Mara, he said. Can I give this back? I looked at the ring. For years, I thought that diamond was proof someone had chosen me. Now it looked like a tiny, bright handcuff. No, I said. His face crumpled. It's yours. It was. What am I supposed to do with it? I pulled my coat tighter. Learn that some things don't come back just because you finally notice they're gone. Hestered at me, rain sliding down his face, mixing with whatever tears he wanted me to see. I did love you, he said. I believed him. That surprised me. I believed he loved me in the way selfish people love beautiful rooms, loyal dogs, childhood songs, things that make them feel good without asking too much. But he had not honored me. And love without honor is just appetite dressed up. I loved you too, I said. His eyes lifted, hopeful and ruined. And that's why what you did mattered. I walked away before he could answer. Healing did not look like a movie montage. It looked like sleeping 4 hours and calling it progress. It looked like changing the locks, then crying because the house sounded too quiet. It looked like throwing away mugs Ethan liked and keeping the cast iron pan because I liked it more. It looked like going to therapy every Tuesday and learning to say the sentence I hated most. I was betrayed, but I was not stupid. My therapist, Dr. Klein, asked me once to read from the journal Brooke had photographed. I chose the first page after the open call. When I finished, she asked, "What do you feel toward the woman who sat there and kept listening?" I expected to say pity. Instead, I said, pride. Dr. Klein nodded. Why? Because she didn't break in front of them. That became the beginning of my new life. Not joy all at once. Not peace like sunlight pouring through a window. More like thawing. Slow. Painful. Real. I started taking morning walks by the lake without checking Ethan's location. I cooked too much pasta and invited Lila over to help me eat it. I bought plants and killed 3 before learning how not to overwater things just because I was afraid of losing them. Patricia visited sometimes. At first it was awkward, but grief builds strange bridges. She never asked me to forgive her son. She never defended him. She only brought lemon bread and stories about who Ethan had been as a boy, and somehow those stories helped me let go of the man without pretending the whole past had been fake. Daniel sent one email a year later. It said, "I married someone kind last weekend. I thought you should know that the truth you gave me saved my life before I built it on a lie. I hope yours is beautiful too." I cried when I read it. Not because I loved Daniel. I barely knew him. But because betrayal spreads damage in all directions, and sometimes telling the truth is the only way to stop the fire from reaching another house. A year after the divorce, I stood in my grandmother's kitchen painting the cabinets green. The contractor had gone for the day. Music played from my phone, the windows were open, and the whole house smelled like rain, paint, and basil from the plant I had finally managed not to kill. Lila sat on the counter eating grapes. "You know what today is?" she asked. I looked at the date on my phone. The anniversary of the open call. I waited for pain to punch through me. It didn't. There was sadness, yes. A scar knows the weather. But it no longer owned the room. "I should do something," I said. "Like what?" I wiped paint from my wrist and thought about the journal upstairs. The one that had once been evidence, then survival, then memory. "I think I'm going to finish the book." Lila smiled. I had been writing essays quietly for months. About women who mistake endurance for loyalty. About marriages that die in whispers before they die in court. About friends who turn intimacy into ammunition. About the difference between silence and surrender. I published the first essay online under my own name. I expected 12 people to read it. Within 3 days, thousands had. Women wrote to me from Texas, Ohio, California, Maine. My husband called me crazy too. My sister knew and never told me. My best friend used my secrets against me. I thought leaving meant I failed. Every message hurt. Every message healed something. Pain, I learned, does not become useful because it happened. It becomes useful when you refuse to let liars be the only ones who tell the story. I eventually turned the essays into a book. On the cover, there was no broken heart, no wedding ring, no crying woman. Just an open door. The night before the launch, I found the old wedding photo in a storage box. Me in satin. Ethan in his tux. Brooke behind us with one hand on each of our shoulders. For a long time, I stared at it. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I didn't rip it. I didn't burn it. I placed it inside the back of my journal and wrote beneath it, "I was happy here." That matters too. They don't get to steal the truth just because they ruined what came after. The next morning, I spoke at a bookstore in Lincoln Park. Every chair was filled. Some women stood along the walls. Some came with friends. Some came alone, arms crossed tightly like they were holding themselves together. During the Q&A, a woman in the back raised her hand. Her voice shook. "How did you know when to stop fighting for him and start fighting for yourself?" The room went quiet. I thought about Ethan's voice saying, "I love you." I thought about Brooke's laugh. I thought about the lease, the journal photos, the courtroom, the ring in the rain. Then I answered honestly. When I realized he wasn't asking me to forgive him. He was asking me to disappear quietly so he could remain the good man in his own story. The woman covered her mouth. I softened my voice. And I decided my life was not going to be the place where someone else hid their shame. After the event, I walked home instead of taking a cab. Chicago was cold, but not cruel that night. The skyline glittered behind bare branches. A couple passed me holding hands. Once, that would have felt like a knife. Now it felt like weather. Something some people had. Something I might have again. Or not. Either way, I was still here. When I reached my front steps, I paused. For years, I had waited for Ethan to come home. Then I waited for proof. Then I waited for court dates, signatures, apologies that would never be clean enough to matter. Now, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting. I opened my own door. Inside, the house was warm, plants lined the windows. Books covered the coffee table. My grandmother's old quilt lay across the couch. On the kitchen counter sat one slice of lemon bread Patricia had dropped off that morning with a note that said, "You are still family if you want to be." I stood there and let myself feel the whole strange, aching beauty of surviving. Ethan and Brooke thought I was too desperate for love to notice their laughter. They misunderstood wounded women. A wounded woman may cry. She may beg. She may stay too long. She may write her pain in a journal and blame herself for a coldness she did not create. But sometimes she hears the truth by accident. Sometimes she goes quiet, sometimes she gathers screenshots, leases, security footage, bank records, and the last pieces of herself. Sometimes she returns a ring without throwing it, sometimes she leaves a party before the explosion because she no longer needs to stand near the bomb to prove it went off. And sometimes, after losing two people she loved, she discovers the one person she did not lose. Herself. I locked the door behind me, set my keys in the blue bowl by the entrance, and laughed softly. Not at anyone. Not like they had laughed at me. I laughed because the house was mine, the night was mine, the silence was mine, and my heart, after everything they did to it, was still beating like it had never belonged to them at all.